In 2007, TomTom was worth $12 billion and dominated the GPS navigation market with a staggering 63% market share across Europe and North America. The Dutch company had transformed from a small software developer into the undisputed king of automotive navigation, selling over 50 million GPS devices worldwide. Their iconic black boxes sat proudly on dashboards everywhere, guiding drivers with that distinctive robotic voice that became synonymous with modern navigation. TomTom's proprietary map data, developed over decades at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars, was considered the gold standard for accuracy and coverage. The company employed over 3,000 cartographers who meticulously updated road networks, points of interest, and traffic patterns across 40 countries. Their premium devices sold for anywhere from $200 to $600, with map updates costing an additional $50 to $100 annually. Wall Street analysts predicted TomTom would continue growing at 20% annually, driven by the expanding global automotive market and increasing consumer demand for navigation technology. The company's CEO, Harold Goddingen, confidently declared that TomTom would become the definitive source of location intelligence for the digital age. Consumer electronics retailers like Best Buy and Circuit City dedicated entire aisles to GPS devices, with TomTom commanding prime shelf space and premium positioning. The dedicated GPS market was projected to reach $8 billion by 2012, with TomTom positioned to capture the lion's share. Then Steve Jobs took the stage at the Worldwide Developers Conference on June 9, 2008, and uttered three words that would ultimately destroy an entire industry: GPS and maps. The iPhone 3G wasn't just getting faster internet connectivity, it was getting built-in GPS functionality with Google Maps integration at no additional cost to consumers. While industry observers initially dismissed this as a novelty feature that couldn't possibly compete with dedicated GPS units, Google was quietly executing one of the most devastating competitive strategies in business history. The search giant had been methodically building its mapping capabilities since 2004, but the iPhone partnership gave them something TomTom never saw coming: unlimited access to real-world navigation data from millions of users. Every iPhone user who opened Google Maps was unknowingly contributing to a crowdsourced mapping database that would soon dwarf anything the traditional GPS companies had spent decades building. Google's Street View cars had already photographed over 5 million miles of roads across 20 countries, creating a visual mapping layer that TomTom couldn't match. More importantly, Google's advertising-based business model meant they could offer navigation services completely free to consumers, while TomTom needed to charge premium prices to recoup their massive infrastructure investments. The tech giant's deep pockets allowed them to treat Maps as a loss leader that supported their core search and advertising business, while for TomTom, Maps were the entire business. The initial impact seemed minimal to TomTom executives, who dismissed smartphone navigation as inferior due to smaller screens, shorter battery life, and dependence on cellular connectivity. Harold Goddingen publicly stated that dedicated GPS devices would always be superior because they were purpose-built for navigation, while smartphones were trying to be everything to everyone. TomTom's internal research showed that their devices were still more accurate than Google Maps, especially in rural areas where cellular coverage was spotty. The company doubled down on their premium positioning, launching the Geo series with larger screens, lifetime map updates, and advanced traffic information services. They partnered with automotive manufacturers to integrate TomTom software directly into dashboard systems, signing deals with Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz worth over $200 million. TomTom also expanded into fleet management services for commercial vehicles, believing that professional drivers would never trust free smartphone apps for mission-critical navigation. The company acquired TeleAtlas, a major mapping data provider, for $4 billion in 2008, consolidating their control over the European mapping market. This acquisition was supposed to give TomTom an insurmountable competitive advantage by controlling both the hardware and the underlying map data that competitors relied on. But Google was playing a completely different game, with rules that TomTom fundamentally misunderstood. While TomTom was focused on selling individual devices and map updates, Google was harvesting location data from every Android phone and iPhone, using their services to create the most comprehensive real-time traffic and navigation database ever assembled. By 2010, Google Maps was processing over 1 billion location requests daily from mobile devices, generating unprecedented insights into traffic patterns, road closures, and routing efficiency. The company's machine learning algorithms could predict traffic conditions with 90% accuracy up to 4 hours in advance, far exceeding TomTom's traffic information capabilities. Google's crowdsourced approach meant that new roads, business closures, and address changes were reflected in their maps within days, while TomTom's traditional surveying methods took months or years to incorporate similar updates. The search giant also leveraged user-generated content from Google My Business listings, restaurant reviews, and local search queries to create rich contextual information about destinations that no GPS company could match. When Google launched free turn-by-turn navigation on Android devices in October 2009, TomTom's stock price dropped 21% in a single day, as investors suddenly understood the existential threat facing the dedicated GPS market. The speed of TomTom's decline was breathtaking and brutal. GPS device sales peaked in 2008 at 43 million units globally, but plummeted to just 16 million units by 2012, as smartphone adoption accelerated. TomTom's device revenue dropped from 1.8 billion euros in 2007 to just 800 million euros in 2013, while their market capitalization fell from $12 billion to less than $2 billion. The company was forced to lay off 30% of their workforce and close manufacturing facilities across Europe and Asia. Retail partners began reducing GPS shelf space dramatically, with Best Buy cutting their GPS section by 70% between 2010 and 2014. Circuit City, once a major TomTom retail partner, filed for bankruptcy in 2009, partly due to declining sales of high-margin consumer electronics like GPS devices. Even worse for TomTom, consumers weren't just choosing smartphones over dedicated GPS units. They were actively abandoning GPS devices they already owned. Market research showed that 68% of existing GPS users had switched to smartphone navigation by 2013, leaving millions of TomTom devices unused in glove compartments and drawers. The secondary market for used GPS devices collapsed as well, with units that originally sold for $400 trading for less than $20 on eBay. Google's advantages went far beyond just being free. They were building a fundamentally superior product that leveraged the smartphone's connected capabilities in ways that dedicated GPS devices simply couldn't match. Google Maps integrated seamlessly with users' contacts, calendars, and search histories to provide intelligent destination suggestions and routing. The service could dynamically reroute drivers around traffic jams, accidents, and road construction in real time, using data from millions of other users on the same routes. Google's voice recognition technology allowed drivers to search for destinations using natural language commands, while TomTom users had to manually input addresses using clunky touchscreen interfaces. The smartphone integration meant that Google Maps could provide information about business hours, phone numbers, customer reviews, and photos for any destination, creating a comprehensive travel planning experience that TomTom couldn't replicate. Google also leveraged their massive data centers and cloud computing infrastructure to deliver lightning-fast route calculations and map rendering that made dedicated GPS devices feel sluggish by comparison. The company's global scale allowed them to offer consistent navigation experiences across 200 countries and territories, while TomTom's coverage was limited to the regions where they had invested in detailed mapping. TomTom's desperate attempts to compete only highlighted how fundamentally their business model was broken in the smartphone era. The company launched TomTom apps for iOS and Android, but charging $30 to $50 for mobile navigation software when Google offered superior functionality for free proved to be commercial suicide. Their app downloads were minimal, and user reviews were consistently negative compared to Google Maps and other free alternatives. TomTom tried to differentiate by emphasizing their offline capabilities, allowing users to navigate without cellular connectivity, But this advantage became less relevant as mobile data coverage expanded and unlimited data plans became standard. The company also attempted to license their mapping data to competitors, but Google's superior crowdsourced data and Apple's development of their own mapping platform limited demand for TomTom's expensive licensing deals. Their partnership with Apple for the disastrous iOS 6 Maps launch in 2012 actually damaged TomTom's reputation when users experienced widespread navigation errors and missing locations. The company invested heavily in developing new services like speed camera alerts and advanced traffic information. But these features couldn't justify the cost difference when free alternatives offered 90% of the functionality that most users needed. The automotive industry integration that TomTom had viewed as their salvation ultimately proved to be another dead end as car manufacturers began embracing smartphone connectivity instead of proprietary navigation systems. Apple's CarPlay and Google's Android Auto allowed drivers to seamlessly extend their smartphone navigation experience to their car's built-in display, eliminating the need for embedded GPS systems. Tesla's Model S, launched in 2012, featured Google Maps integration as standard equipment, signaling that even luxury automakers were moving away from traditional navigation suppliers. European regulations requiring new cars to include emergency calling systems pushed manufacturers toward connected vehicle platforms that made standalone GPS functionality redundant. TomTom's automotive revenue peaked at €400 million in 2011, but declined steadily as car companies developed their own connected services or partnered directly with Google and Apple. The shift toward electric vehicles and autonomous driving technology further marginalized traditional GPS suppliers, as these advanced systems required real-time connectivity and cloud-based processing that favored technology giants over hardware-focused navigation companies. By 2017, the dedicated GPS device market had shrunk to less than 12 million units globally, representing a catastrophic 72% decline from its 2008 peak. And TomTom's share of this rapidly diminishing market had fallen to just 38%. The company's stock price hit historic lows of under €6 per share, down from peaks of over €60 in 2007, wiping out more than $10 billion in shareholder value. Major retailers like Walmart and Target reduced their GPS sections to single shelves tucked away in automotive departments, treating the devices as legacy products for consumers who refuse to adopt smartphones. Consumer electronics review websites stopped featuring dedicated GPS devices in their annual buying guides, acknowledging that smartphones had made the entire product category obsolete for most users. TomTom was forced to reinvent itself as a business-to-business mapping data provider, focusing on fleet management, logistics optimization, and licensing deals with remaining automotive partners. The company's workforce had shrunk from over 4,000 employees at its peak to fewer than 2,000, with most of the remaining staff focused on data services rather than consumer products. Harold Goddingen stepped down as CEO in 2014, acknowledging that the smartphone revolution had fundamentally changed the navigation industry in ways that TomTom couldn't overcome. The destruction of TomTom and the dedicated GPS industry represents one of the most complete and devastating examples of digital disruption in business history, where a free software service eliminated billions of dollars in hardware revenue within less than a decade. Google's victory wasn't just about offering a cheaper alternative. They created a fundamentally superior product experience that leveraged the connected, always updated nature of smartphones to deliver capabilities that dedicated devices simply couldn't match. The lesson for other hardware-dependent industries is sobering. When software companies with different business models and unlimited resources decide to enter your market, traditional competitive advantages like superior engineering, established distribution channels, and customer loyalty can evaporate with shocking speed. TomTom's maps were more accurate, their hardware was more reliable, and their brand was more trusted. But none of these advantages mattered when consumers could get navigation services that were good enough, constantly improving, and completely free. Today, finding a working dedicated GPS device is like discovering a relic from the pre-smartphone era, a reminder of how quickly entire industries can vanish when the underlying technology platform shifts beneath their feet.